What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. I hope you all had a great day number 1 of Global Go Fest. I got the Hundo Zamazenta, gonna be hunting for that Hundo Zacian to round out the collection here, day number 2, but I didn't have a lot of time to build a team for the Go Battle League today. I wanted to use a team that I knew worked, so I went back to one of my favorite lines this season. Let's get into the battles and see what this team can do. Alright, here it is. Shadow Drifblim as our lead up against a Golisopod. They could have Shadow Claw or Fury Cutter. Fury Cutter would probably swap out. Shadow Claw might stay in, but we do see the instant pivot, so I would expect the Bug-type fast move on that Pokemon. Shadow Drapion we do have answers for in the backline, while Diggersby is a ground type and ground is good into Drapion. I know because our charge moves are so much slower than theirs that it is a little bit awkward to instantly pivot out there, so instead I'm going to go for a Chip and Dip. The Astonish damage as well as the Icy Wind is going to make this matchup kind of nasty for me in the mirror match. I know I can go straight for Fast Food Pressure here, shield a single time, and get nearly 100 energy just by farming them all the way down. Our opponent is at the next move, but they're nowhere near the final Aqua Tail they would need to knock us out, which means I think we'll have so much energy for either their Golisopod if they come back in with it, or potentially their final pick. They do come back in Golisopod though, meaning they don't have a great way to sponge this energy. Crunch almost one-shots them here. I'm going to go for an Aqua Tail, and it looks like they're actually on Shadow Claw as a fast move, which is very interesting. I'm surprised they would have swapped out of that lead matchup, saying they did have the good fast attack into us. With that said, that likely means their final Pokemon is strong into Drifblim, so I'm not going to invest a shield here. Instead, I'm going to just commit to the farm down. Astonish knocks them out. I have a lot of energy. I likely can reach a move against anything in the backline. Our opponent waiting down the switch clock here for just a second. In comes the Dedenne, and I go for the Icy Wind. This can debuff them. They actually catch on the Shadow Drapion. Very good play by them, but we have a Diggersby in the backline. That's why we saved our Ground-type Pokemon. All the energy in the world is not going to flip this matchup for our opponent. We bring in the Ground-type. They realize not much they can do. GG to our opponent. Next game, Shadow Drifblim into Galarian Corsola. Now, while this matchup is playable, I have too much better Pokemon into this Pokemon in the backline, so I'm going to swap out to our Shadow Drapion, and we are actually met this time by a Diggersby. Not the worst case scenario here, but it can be kind of interesting depending on what their final Pokemon might be. Aqua Tail coming through, it does 3-shot the Diggersby here, but you can reach 2 before they can reach a single move against us, which means before a debuff is even possible to be thrown into us, we get 2 non-debuffed Aqua Tails, which chips them down deep into the yellow, nearly into the red. Even if a Scorching Sands does drop our attack at this point, it actually does. You know, why wouldn't it? We can still knock him out, though, with the Aqua Tail. This should be enough to knock him out or draw a shield from this Diggersby. I know if we can get shields down, Shadow Ball is going to basically one-shot that Galarian Corsola in the backline, so I don't necessarily need Switch. I wouldn't mind Switch. Getting Diggersby into that Corsola would be fantastic, but I also would love to get shields down and farm this down with my Drifblim, so let's see if our opponent wants to go down shields, or at this point, if they're fine letting this go and thinking whatever they have in the backline might sweep us. They do let that go here. They come in with a Shadow Samurott of all things. This could be a little bit scary if they can farm us all the way down. We know this energy can go quite a ways against both my Diggersby as well as my Shadow Drifblim. In comes another move here from our opponent. They probably could have committed to a farm down. I think they could have swept us, actually, if they would have gone for that, but they get a little bit scared there. They thought I might have a bit more energy than I did, which means they threw energy against us, and now Astonish is going to do so much damage to Shadow Samurott. These Fury Cutters are resisted. Hydro Cannon, Shadow into Shadow, nearly one-shots us, though, despite being neutral damage into us, but we can still reach the Icy Wind. No catch, it looks like, from our opponent, which means Diggersby lines up into the Ghost-type Pokemon. Not much they can do here. This Corsola is one of the Ghost types that has no play into Diggersby. GG there to our opponent. Next game is a Shadow Jumpluff into our Shadow Drifblim here. It is a very good lead matchup for us, but it's also a little bit more awkward than you might expect, saying they can outpace us to very hard-hitting flying-type moves. In comes the Feraligatr, though, as the safe swap instantly from our opponent here. I guess they haven't heard about the Pokemon called Dedenne. That is a crazy team to be running right now. I'm going to full send the Shadow Ball. We don't have a great answer to a Shadow or even a non-Shadow Feraligatr as a safe swap. They actually do let it go, so a good call by me there, not to bait. An Icy Wind would not have been quite enough damage to knock them out, so by knocking them out here, hopefully we're going to put us in a good spot in the endgame. In comes that Shadow Jumpluff once again. I have the Icy Wind ready to go. This should be able to one-shot or draw a shield, I guess, from our opponent here. And Astonish damage is absolutely shredding through the HP of this Shadow Jumpluff. Because I think at this point they gave us a sneak, I think I can shield this up, get an Icy Wind off into them. That's going to do a critical amount of damage, either knocking this Pokemon out, making it a 3-on-1 in the backline, or double debuffing this Shadow Jumpluff here, as well as drawing the final shield. They are going to go for the shield on that attack here. They come in with a shiny Regidrago. Very cool Pokemon to see. I know we have play into this Pokemon, but I also know this Pokemon is not as squishy as I might want it to be. Crunch, while it does do a decent amount of damage here, we can't quite go for a Poison Sting down. They throw right before I get to an Aqua Tail. I'm just hoping at this point I can quick attack down before another Dragon Energy will be thrown. They go for the Dragon Energy against us here. We know that they are very close to another move here. They go for an attack. What is it going to be? It could be a Dragon Energy, but it could also just be a Breaking Swipe. Unfortunately for us, it is a hard-hitting move here. Nearly takes away half of our HP on our Diggersby. They come back in with a Shadow Jumpluff, and I think we can survive an Acrobatics here, but man, it's going to be close. In comes a move. We do survive the Acrobatics just barely, and I think our Shadow Drifloon has a bit of HP remaining. I need to hope I can Astonish down before they knock us out. In comes Drifloon here. Just a couple of Astonishes is all it takes to barely take us a win there. GG to our opponent. Next matchup, Shadow Scizor against Shadow Drifloon. Very neutral matchup. You're going to see here the fast and pressure from both sides adds up very quickly. Shadow Scizor is able to potentially boost with Night Slash, and also in this matchup, it's kind of weird. Good Shadow Scizor can survive the farm down in the one shield matchup. A bad Shadow Scizor would get knocked out. Our opponent doesn't want to play that out. They end up swapping instantly into the Lapras after throwing that Night Slash. I have a Shadow Ball ready to go, but you can see on our team, we don't have a great counter swap into a Lapras up energy, especially when we were down shields to begin with here. We dump a Shadow Ball into them. They shield. Maybe I should have gone for an Icy Wind bait, but that is such a risky play. In comes a Sparkling Aria. It doesn't quite knock us out. Psywave is not going to farm us down, at least not anytime soon, but this Pokemon is still going to be very tricky to take down. Crunch coming through, it does land against the Lapras here. I'm going to go for the Aqua Tail. I was going to try to, that is, but our opponent, very smart. They go for the move right before I reach the attack. It knocks out our Shadow Drapion, and Dusclops in the back line. That is a ghost type we don't have play into. GG to our opponent, very well played. All right, next game here. Another Shadow Scizor in the lead. Potentially a redemption from the last game. We were able to lose the last game pretty handily to our opponent because they played so well. Let's hope this time I can shield my Shadow Drifloon, farm them all the way down, and use our energy against the backline. Night Slash gets shielded. Our opponent does not have the best Shadow Scizor I've ever seen. We farm them all the way down. In comes a Guzzlord, it looks like. A Pokemon that is a bit of a core breaker to our team here, but luckily Icy Wind is super effective, either getting a shield or a massive amount of damage. They let it go, they farm us down, and now they do have some energy here, as well as a shield advantage, but I have the switch advantage. I guess not that it really matters, saying Shadow Drapion has almost nowhere to go in this game. Go for a very risky Fire Punch bait. Our opponent does end up shielding, so I guess that's a good play by me here, but man, that could have gone very wrong very quickly if our opponent would have called the attack. In comes a catch. Aqua Tail almost certainly being thrown into us here. Now, I mean, they can knock us out with an Outrage if they want to, but that's a lot of energy down the drain, and Diggersby at this point just needs a Scorching Sands for this Pokemon and a Scorching Sands for that Guzzlord to win this game. They do obviously have a shield left over, as well as a bit of fast pressure and energy on that Guzzlord, so this game is not over by any means. I need a lot of good energy management if I want any chance to win this match. No debuff on that Scorching Sands, not that it really matters here, because I know that we would still survive the Aqua Tail plus potentially a Crunch or a Brutal Swing, depending on what their moveset is on that Guzzlord. It will be a little bit closer than I like because of no debuff, but I think we're still in a decent spot. In comes the Aqua Tail. We take a decent amount of our HP, but we still have about a third, maybe a quarter of our Diggersby around that we can use to dance around with that Guzzlord in the back. Scorching Sands knocks out the Dragalge here. In comes the Guzzlord. Is this going to be a Crunch? Or even if it is a Crunch, is it enough to knock us out? It's going to be a Brutal Swing. We survived that pretty easily. We have the Scorching Sands ready to go. Guzzlord is not going to be able to withstand this attack here. In comes a move. Down goes the Guzzlord. GG to our opponent, Diggersby, putting in a lot of work in the backline. Next matchup is a Pidgeot. All right, not my favorite lead matchup here. I'm going to swap out. I mean, I have Icy Wind if I need it later on. Double normal from our opponent so far. Diggersby ends up coming in as their counter swap. Pretty good answer to us. It's not the best Pokemon for me to see, but I know Aqua Tail is going to add up quite a bit over time. And if I can potentially get shields down here, start going for Icy Winds if I can farm down this Pokemon with our Drifblim into that Pidgeot later on, and we might still have some play in this game. Aqua Tail is going to be reached. I'm actually at back-to-back moves here, which means I can likely get a shield back or KO this Diggersby, depending on how they want to play it out. I'm going to go for the Aqua Tail now, potentially on CMP. I don't have quite enough energy here to win the 2-shield matchup, even though I had, I think, maybe 3 Poison Stings of an energy lead. That's just because here Diggersby does survive 2 moves. It's kind of a bulky Pokemon, right? I'm going to let this go at this point. I know while they still have a shield left over, I don't necessarily want shields to go down. Then they can just start going for Brave Birds against either our Drifblim or our Diggersby. I don't want to let that happen, so we keep a shield in the back, and we have the ability to still go for a full Astonish down here, get nearly 100 energy out of this matchup. Unfortunately, they do reach another move here. That's going to mean at this point that our Drifblim is deep into the yellow. It's not going to be able to survive long enough to get to a 3rd Icy Wind, but we will at least get to 2, which I think will draw a shield or KO this Pidgeot. They're at 2 gusts of energy right now. They're at a 3rd gust of energy, meaning they could potentially be at an air cutter right now. Icy Wind is going to draw the shield from them. They instantly swap, though, to a Shadow Annihilape, one of the few Pokemon that can definitely deal with our Diggersby when we're down this much, or when we're up this much of an advantage. We have a shield advantage here. It's not going to matter, though. They actually go straight for the Ice Punch. I try to call the Rage Fist. GG to our opponent. Not exactly the best team comp for me in that match. My goodness, another Shadow Scizor in the lead. Honestly, it's been like the most common lead that I've seen the last couple of days here. I know it's a very good Pokemon, but please, guys, get a little bit more original. I want to play against a variety of leads, not just Shadow Scizor every single match. I mean, we can still play it out here pretty well, right? These Astonishes are going to shred through the HP, but this time our opponent makes an interesting play where they transfer the damage over to the Jellicent. They're just one more Bullet Punch away from a move, and they have a decent amount of HP loaded on that Pokemon in the backline. With that said, we get a shield with our Shadow Balls, so that means at this point, our Shadow Drapion can start going for crunches. Hopefully after the Astonish damage we got against them as well, they'll be in a range where a crunch could knock them out. We have crunch almost back-to-back crunches here. We could go for the Aqua Tail if we want to snipe them down, but I feel like at this point, potentially, that could be a misplay. If I went for the Aqua Tail, they just farm us down with that Scizor. I want to instead go for the shield here, watch for the Scizor to come back in, which is exactly what they end up doing. We go for the Aqua Tail to snipe down all of the energy that they have here. If they want a shield, they can, but they're not going to get a lot out of this Pokemon. We end up knocking out the Shadow Scizor. Jellicent is still around, but what is the final Pokemon on our opponent's team? They actually end up bringing it in here. It's going to be a Diggersby. Surprise, surprise, one of the best Pokemon in the meta. Aqua Tail should be able to do a decent chunk of damage here, making it so the mirror match is a little bit better for us in the back. In comes a move. Fire Punch will knock us out here. They had to throw energy before my Icy Wind. Very good play by our opponent here. Fire Punch knocks us out. And while we are in a decent spot, saying that we have a lot of chip damage into them, they do have the energy lead as well as the ability to potentially clear a debuff a little bit earlier than me, or even just catch a move. In comes the Scorching Sands here. I'm hoping for no debuff. That would be pretty bad if they ended up debuffing us early on in this matchup. Scorching Sands does not get a debuff. Love to see that here. Our opponent could catch it anytime. I try to wait, but it doesn't work. The visual shot updating, which means that now they get the next Scorching Sands off. Another potential debuff chance against us, and they get the debuff this time. And I guess I go for a Fire Punch bait. This is kind of unwinding quickly right now. Fire Punch gets no shielded by them. Not what I want to see. Scorching Sands at this point is still going to chip them down quite a bit. Do they want to shield at this point, or do they let it go? They do shield, but I need to make a catch here to have any chance, and there we have it. We make the catch on the Shadow Drapion. That gets us back in the game at least a little bit here. I know they still have a catch available to them. I know waiting a turn is not working for me here, so I just keep on going for the quick attacks. We're at back-to-back Fire Punch plus a Scorching Sands. This should be enough to knock out the Jellicent right before their surf, and we have the move before this Diggersby has any energy to throw against us. Scorching should knock out their Diggersby. Very interesting endgame. Not very well played by me, but I mean, I made the catch. I came back from a bit of a misplay there, so GG to our opponent. Very close game. Next matchup, Shadow and Annihilape. This is the dream scenario in the lead, but this is not the most ideal scenario as a safe swap. Our team, while we do have the Shadow Drapion to resist the Sucker Punch damage, has to go down shields to guarantee switch advantage for us, which could be bad. We know Annihilape has access to a hard-hitting move known as Rage Fist, which after the Sucker Punch damage we took on our Drifloon thanks to our very slow swap, we are going to maybe be in range for that could knock us out. With that said, they went for a Brave Bird, it looks like here, which means I can build up a lot of energy, go for a single Aqua Tail and knock them out here. Very interesting play by our opponent to full send the Brave Bird rather than playing it out and going for flies. I feel like at that point, we can now, since we have this much energy, get shields back from this Shadow Annihilape. Aqua Tail is reached. Is this going to be able to draw a shield, or does our opponent go for the no shield? They do shield. We have another Aqua Tail ready to go. This should either knock them out or put them into single Astonish range. In comes the shield from our opponent, and at this point, we can come in, astonish them down likely with our Shadow Drifloon here, or potentially, I guess if we wanted, we could throw energy if we need to. I'm not quite sure where the counts are at in this game. Looks like we don't really need to here. Our opponent is not at a move just yet, and in the backline is a Tinkaton. We have our Diggersby for that. They don't even see it, but they realize that is not a good situation to be in. Oh my goodness, another Shadow Scizor. I mean, it's a good lead, right? It's a Pokemon that can really just power through a lot of the neutral matchups in the game. Drifloon can keep up with the faster pressure, but you always have to go down shields, which could be bad depending on what's in the back. Night Slash draws our shield here. I'm going to go for the full farm down, but this time, you can see this is a good Shadow Scizor. They survive the Astonish on 1 HP. Literally 1 HP is all they survive it on. I do catch the Night Slash here, but they end up coming with a Greninja. And I'm going to be honest, this is a bit of a team-building blunder by me. This Pokemon is good against our entire team. We go for the shield on the Hydro Cannon because I know at this point, we need to keep some health somewhere on the board. I need to try to go for the Poison Sting damage, go for crunches as well to potentially chip down this Greninja as much as we can. We do get the defense drop there, which is helpful, but I don't know if it's going to be enough for us to still win this game. In comes our Drifloon. We are almost at back-to-back moves, but Greninja is so spammy. I'm not going to get to a second Icy Wind here. In comes the move our opponent. Going to no shield. They actually end up surviving. I try to catch a move, but there's a chance, if they're smart, they still go for Hydro Cannon, expecting a potential catch. Our opponent does exactly that, and that means now that's a lot of HP gone on our Diggersby. Honestly, even without that play, Dusclops would be very hard to take down. GG to our opponent. Very tricky team comp for us to deal with. Next game is Shadow Jumpluff in the lead. All right, this is a pretty good lead matchup here. It can be a little bit dicey if they stay in and they get some baits off against us, but I know over time my Astonishes add up, my Icy Winds lower their attack stat as well, which should make it a little bit easier to deal with. Ace does end up coming through on the first move. Icy Wind, though, is going to debuff their attack stat, and it should draw a shield almost guaranteed from our opponent. If it didn't draw a shield, honestly, I'd be fine with a one-shot as well, but no, they do end up shielding that move, and this time, it's almost certainly an acrobatics, right? I'm going to shield this up. If it's another bait, so be it. Either way, we've whittled down a Pokemon that could put in a lot of work against our Diggersby, and I mean, even though Shadow Drapion is a poison type, acrobatics would do quite a bit of damage there. They end up letting that move go, actually. I have a lot of HP left over on our Shadow Drifblim, and they come in with a Shadow Drapion. I don't want to let them get a ton of energy or even just knock out our own Shadow Drifblim there, so I'm going to build up a bit of energy of our own. So try to catch a crunch. Didn't quite work out, but we're still in a good spot where we can go for Aqua Tails into the Shadow Drapion and start chipping them down over time. We should be able to survive the next Aqua Tail here. It will be close, though. They must have a pretty attack-weighted Shadow Drapion. I don't know. We're a lot lower than I would expect at this point in this matchup. Aqua Tail almost knocks us out. We go for the Aqua Tail against them. They go in with a Jellicent. Man, I should have overfarmed, I guess. I don't know. It's such a hard play to make, saying we'd get knocked out by Fast and Pressure. But if I would have gone for the crunch there, we could have reached it. In comes the farm down against us. And I mean, I have energy left over here. I could go for an Icy Wind bait, but I also know that could be catastrophic if they end up calling the attack there. We go for the guaranteed Shadow Ball shield, and these Astonishes are putting them into range where Scorching Sands could be enough to knock them out, but I know they still have an energy lead here, and they have energy as well on that Shadow Drapion. In comes our Diggersby. We have a lot of work to do. Surf coming through. I know it doesn't two-shot us. That's the one silver lining about this matchup. In comes a move, and yeah, we survived that a little bit easier than our opponent would probably like us to. In comes our Scorching Sands as well. Our opponent catches on the Shadow Drapion. Honestly, I'm fine with that, though, because Shadow Drapion had energy. I need to make sure I don't take an Aqua Tail there. I need to just make sure, can I get to a move before their double surfs are going to come through against us? I know they're one away. I think if I'm one quick attack away from my next Scorching Sands, we should be able to outpace. They were one away. We were one away. In comes the Scorching. This should knock them out. And a very tricky endgame is able to be closed out by Diggersby. GG there to our opponent. All right, next matchup here. Battle of the hard-hitting Astonish users. Back and forth. Massive fast move pressure coming through. We know that they can go for Shadow Punch against us a bit earlier than my Icy Wind, but by sneaking that Astonish, it's going to put us ahead just a little bit in this matchup. The next Astonish was not just enough to knock out that Dusknoir. I did not want to take another Astonish on our Shadow Drifblim, so what I end up doing is I actually end up coming in with the Shadow Drapion, sniping them down, and for some reason, their answer to our Shadow Drapion is a Jumpluff. That is not a Pokemon that I conventionally see as a good counter swap into a Poison-type Pokemon. I mean, it's not, I guess, the worst matchup for them, but it is surprising. This is their best pick that they chose to come in with, so I'm going to shield up the attack here. They end up coming with a Lapras, and I mean, that is a little bit tricky, saying our Diggersby in the back has no shields to hide behind, but we have energy on our Drapion. We have energy as well on our Shadow Drifblim. So I think at this point, we're going to get a shield with this Crunch, and that Jumpluff in the backline doesn't have a lot of energy, and they're pretty low on HP to the point where a Fire Punch would be enough to knock them out. I'm just going to go for the full-on Aqua Tail at this point. If they want to let this go, even faster pressure could be enough to knock them out. Aqua Tail does end up getting no shield by our opponent. Good play by them. But now I'm going to go for another resisted move. Why not? In comes the Icy Wind. We get the shield with that attack here. Our opponent does not seem to realize that they cannot farm us down. Another Icy Wind will be thrown into them. This is not looking good for our opponent right now. Drifblim able to Icy Wind down the Lapras. You don't see that too often. Shadow Jumpluff can come back in, but I can bring in our Shadow Drapion to neutralize all of this energy. Diggersby is going to be more than enough to finish out this endgame. In comes the Aerial Ace, down goes our Shadow Drapion, but quick attacks as well as Fire Punch easily enough to finish off this game. GG there to our opponent. Next game, Shadow Blim into Diggersby, very neutral matchup. I wish this was a better matchup than it's going to be here. You can see just how little damage we do with Faster Pressure both back and forth, but because our opponent can reach a Fire Punch before my first debuff in the Zero Shield scenario, it can be a little bit more awkward than I like. Fire Punch does a solid third of my HP there. After my debuffs, though, it's not going to do quite as much damage, but if they want, they can swap out, make it so they can clear their debuff. It depends on how weak they are, though, to our Shadow Drifblim. In comes another Fire Punch. I know I can tank it, but because our Astonish damage is not quite putting them into two-shot range, they should be able to get another move right before I'm able to farm down. Icy Wind will lower their attack once again here, but because they don't have to shield, they can get their next Fire Punch through and potentially put me into a very low health range where something could farm us down. Fire Punch coming through. I can Astonish down if they let us here. Our opponent is staying in, so potentially Shadow Drifblim still has play against whatever they might have in the back. What are they going to bring in? It's going to be a Galarian Corsola. This might be too good to be true here. My whole backline has a lot of play against this. And yeah, as I was saying, it was in fact too good to be true. In comes the Annihilape, the Pokemon that neither of my backline Pokemon want to see. You can see exactly why they stayed in that lead there. Diggersby was able to neutralize me enough to where the Shadow Annihilape now has no counter left in my team. I can go for a shield with that Scorching Sands, and I mean, I have to try to dance around this Pokemon if I want any chance to win this game. Risky play by me. I'm going for the Aqua Tail. If they call this attack here, I can't really fast move them down. Luckily, we do draw the shield. They realize how important their Shadow Annihilape is in this game, but the switch clocks are desynced. I think they might be able to catch my move in just a second here, which could make things incredibly awkward. In comes the crunch. In comes the catch, though, by our opponent. This Galarian Corsola should be able to survive this pretty easily, but my own switch clock is coming back up here in just a second, too. I can bank a crunch. I can come in with Diggersby, absorb all the energy that I possibly can here, and if I can get enough energy to either stall the switch clock long enough to come back in and crunch that Shadow Annihilape before they have a move, or potentially just have enough moves on my Diggersby to knock out the Annihilape, maybe we can still win this game. In comes another move from Galarian Corsola here. The Power Gem is going to add up against us. We are so low on HP. I know we're at 100 energy. I cannot farm this down. Fire Punch should be enough here to knock them out. I have another Fire Punch ready to go. I also have a Scorching Sands. I'm just going to full send here. I have the move on our Shadow Drapion. I think after throwing this move, our switch clock is up. We can swap out, go for the combo play. Crunch has been loaded against this Shadow Annihilape, and despite this Pokemon being so tricky for our backline, we were able to dance around it and take the win. GG there to our opponent. Finishing off the day here with a 4-1 set. Absolutely love to see that here in the Go Battle League. I mean, it's not really a unique team. I used this team earlier on in the season. It's one of my favorite teams that I have really used in this new meta. It's obviously got a few issues nowadays. I think Greninja popping up a bit more could be very tricky for this team. I did actually beat one today. I guess it didn't make it into the video here, but it was a very close game where Shadow Drapion had to put in a lot of work into it. But overall, this seemed very fun, very flexible, and if you like using Shadow Drifblim, I think this is one of the best teams you can use. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.